This video includes a paid sponsorship from Jowua, but I'll talk more about that later. The Tesla Cybertruck has an impressive max towing capability of 11,000 pounds and a payload of 2,500 pounds, but since Tesla will not be offering a 500+ mile range version after all, at least for now, what is the true practicality of towing with the Cybertruck, or carrying a heavy payload, or driving in winter weather? Does the final version of the Cybertruck really have enough range? I'm John, and this is Cleanerwatt. Despite having a smaller battery pack than the competition, at only approximately 123 kilowatt hours, the most efficient Cybertruck should be able to go around 340 miles on a single charge, according to Tesla, or 320 miles for the Cyberbeast tri-motor version. If you need a little bit more range, Tesla also offers a range extender add-on, which is a toolbox-sized, approximately 50 kilowatt hour battery pack that gets installed in the back of the Cybertruck bed and boosts the range to 470 plus miles for the all-wheel drive version, or 440 plus miles for the tri-motor version. However, in real-world use, is this enough range? Well, in order to answer this, I need to talk about the truth of electric vehicles and range. The truth is, although when the vehicle is brand new, you may be able to, on a good day, get the EPA rated range for that vehicle, there are many factors that change that. And more likely in real world situations, you're not going to get the EPA rating when it comes to range in your Tesla. There are quite a few factors that I'm going to discuss when it comes to real world range of the Tesla Cybertruck. But first of all, I want to talk about battery degradation and range loss. So as lithium-ion batteries age, their capacity begins to decline, and although Tesla does have a good track record for battery longevity, range loss is a given with electric vehicles, at least with current lithium-ion battery technology. Now, when it comes to how this battery degradation plays out in the real world, based on data that is available on tessie.com/stats, and this data is from over 106 million drives, if you drive a Tesla vehicle around 100,000 miles, you should expect somewhere around an average 10% range loss based on battery degradation. As you can see in this chart, there is a little bit of a variance between models, but nonetheless, the middle of that appears to be around 10%. Do note though, this is mostly based on Panasonic battery cells, but early 4680 data from April of this year, also from Tessie, showed that after 50,000 miles, the first gen 4680 battery cells lost around 5% of their capacity. The Cybertruck does include a second generation of Tesla's 4680 battery cells, but the chemistry stayed the same according to Drew Baglino, and really the cell design is what changed. So I expect that with the Cybertruck, you can expect around a 5% or so battery degradation loss at around 50,000 miles, and probably around a 10% loss after 100,000 miles. So when it comes to how this affects your real world range with a Cybertruck, if you look here and you start, for example, with the all-wheel drive most efficient version at 340 miles of range, at 95% after a 5% degradation, that means your max charge would be 323 miles of range, and at a 10% degradation, once again approximately at around 100,000 miles or so, you would get around 306 miles of a full charge. You can see I've also listed the numbers there for the other versions of the truck, including those with a range extender. Now, before I move on to the other factors that are going to affect the Cybertruck's real-world range, this portion of today's video is sponsored by Jowua, one of the world's leading providers of quality Tesla accessories designed to enhance your Tesla driving experience. Whether you own a Model 3, Y, S, or X, Jowua has you covered with many great products, including their center console tray organizers to help keep your center console neat and clean, their all-weather floor liners with anti-skid backing and hook and loop fasteners for a secure fit, a wireless game controller that's designed to take your Tesla arcade gaming experience to the next level, or for example, their foldable car tray that is easy to open and fold and conveniently stores in the Model 3 or Y front trunk or under the seats of a Model X or Y. Find these and many other great accessories for your Tesla by going over to jowua-life.com/cleanerwatt, and using this link will automatically load in the discount code Cleanerwatt, which will save you 5% off your purchase. I will put this link in the video description below, and do note that I do earn a commission on any Jowua purchase you make using this link, which does help support this channel. Okay, moving back to the real world range of the Cybertruck. Beyond battery degradation, you also have to keep in mind that with nickel-based battery cells, which are what are installed in the Tesla Cybertruck, you should not regularly charge that battery pack to 100%, and it's not a good idea to regularly discharge it down to 0%. If you do so, that will shorten the battery life. But if you maintain, say, like only charging up to 80 or 90% and not regularly going much below 10%, that will increase the lifetime of your battery pack. So not factoring in degradation once again on top of this for simplicity, if you, for example, charge to 90%, that means that with the all-wheel drive most efficient version, you are left with 306 miles of range. On the flip side, if you try to not let your battery get below a 10% state of charge and you don't charge above a 90% state of charge, you're left with 80% of the battery's capacity. And with the most efficient all-wheel drive version, that's 272 miles of daily range. Even if you add the range extender to the all-wheel drive version of the truck, with an 80% spread there, that gives you around 376 plus miles of range. Something else that's going to influence the real-world range of the Cybertruck comes down to the kind of driving you're doing, whether that be city driving or highway driving. The EPA range calculations are for mixed highway and city driving, and driving mainly at highway speeds will decrease the amount of range you get versus the EPA rating. I haven't seen any tests come out yet about the Cybertruck's real-world range driving at 70 miles per hour on the highway, for example, but according to Inside EV's testing for other Tesla EVs, the 2021 Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive was tested to lose around 12.2% of its range. The 2021 Plaid Model S lost around 12% of its range, and the 2020 Tesla Model Y long-range all-wheel drive version lost around 12.7% of its range as compared to the EPA range, driving 70 miles per hour. So with those examples, I believe it's safe to say that very likely the Cybertruck will lose, if you drive it on the highway at 70 miles per hour, around 12% of its range. If you go faster than that, the range loss will probably be greater, but let's stick with 70 miles per hour. And at a 12% loss, with the all-wheel drive version of the truck, the most efficient version of the truck, that would drop the Cybertruck's real-world range to below 300 miles. And once again, this is not layering in battery degradation or charging habits. One of the more drastic influences on real-world range comes down to the exterior temperature. According to data once again shared by Tessie, at 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which equates to around negative 12 degrees Celsius, Tesla's electric vehicles on average lose close to 40% of their range. You can also see on this chart that extreme heat also decreases the amount of range that you get, but not quite as drastic as cold weather. But nonetheless, I'm going to estimate that at 10 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 12 degrees Celsius, that the Cybertruck will lose around 40% of its drivable range, and at a little bit warmer weather, you could say that loss would be around 30%. So if you calculate a 30% and a 40% range loss for the Cybertruck driving in cold weather, you can see how drastically those ranges drop down. And even if you start with the most efficient all-wheel drive version with 340 miles of range, with a 40% loss, that drops to around 204 miles of real-world range. Beyond cold weather, if you're towing a heavy trailer or if you have a heavy payload, that's also going to influence range quite a bit as well. When it comes to just how much range electric trucks lose while towing, I came across this Edmunds video that was published on their YouTube channel, which compared the towing range loss of the 2022 Rivian R1T versus a 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning. And based on the information in this video, which was towing a box trailer that weighed a little bit over 7,400 pounds, the F-150 Lightning four-wheel drive extended range version lost around 52% of its EPA range while towing, and the Rivian R1T quad motor version lost around 57% of its range while towing. So that test was with a box trailer. However, do note that when you tow a flatbed trailer, the range loss generally is less. For example, a previous Edmunds test of a F-150 Lightning towing a Model 3 on a flatbed trailer, that truck averaged an efficiency of 1.5 kilowatt hours per mile with slightly less weight, a little bit under 7,000 pounds of towing, which is quite a bit more than the 1 mile per kilowatt hour efficiency rating of the Ford F-150 hauling a box trailer with a little bit over 7,400 pounds. So when it comes to the Cybertruck, with those examples, I believe it's safe to say that if you were to tow 7,000 or 8,000 pounds with a Cybertruck, you can expect, like say with a box trailer, around a 50% range loss. So a 340-mile range drops down to 170 miles. And for example, if you were to haul a heavier trailer, getting near that 11,000-pound max towing capacity, that range loss would be even greater, likely somewhere around 60% or more of a range loss. Now do note that gas and diesel trucks also lose range while towing as well. And according to this Edmunds video here that was on their YouTube channel, which compared the F-150 Lightning, of course an EV, to a gas truck, to a hybrid truck, to a diesel truck when it comes to a real-world towing test. In this video, they towed a flatbed trailer with a total weight of 6,975 pounds. And you can see that the 2022 Ram 1500 four-wheel drive diesel truck lost around 26.7% of its range hauling that load. The 2021 Ford F-150 hybrid lost around 37.1% of its range. The Chevy Silverado 1500 ZR2 four-wheel drive lost around 9.3% of its range. And this is the data that I mentioned previously, but the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Platinum Edition, lost around 26.7% of its range, which once again is right in line with, for example, the Ram 1500 diesel truck when it comes to range loss. So all trucks do lose range while towing, but the problem is you're starting generally with a lower range amount with an electric vehicle. As you can see, especially with the Ram 1500 diesel and the Ford F-150 hybrid, those max ranges of 624 miles and 734 miles, that's a lot of range to start with. Whereas with a Cybertruck, you're starting with less than that. It's also important to note that fueling up a gas or diesel truck is generally pretty fast unless you have to wait in line. However, charging up an electric vehicle can take quite a bit longer. However, the Cybertruck is equipped with an 800-volt electrical architecture, and it should actually charge quite quickly. Once Tesla's V4 superchargers are more abundant, the Tesla Cybertruck should be able to charge at a max of 350 kilowatts and go from a 15% to an 85% state of charge in 18 to 20 minutes. And this information comes from Tesla's VP of Vehicle Engineering, Lars Moravy, and he mentioned this in a Top Gear Cybertruck review video. With that being said, if you're going to do a lot of towing or carrying heavy payloads, the range extender pack to me is a must-have because it really makes the Cybertruck quite a bit more practical when it comes to real-world range while towing and real-world range while doing a lot of other things. Yes, you will lose some of the rear bed capacity and you will add some weight to the truck, which likely will decrease the amount of payload that you can load and the amount of towing capacity, but I believe it's going to be worth it for that extra range. And this is especially true when you factor everything in, because when I gave these range estimates, I really isolated each one of these categories for simplicity. But if you actually start stacking some of these, for example, if you have a Cybertruck that's been driven 100,000 miles, for example, and it has lost around 10% of its range, and you don't want to charge the battery to a 100% state of charge, so you charge it to a 90%, for example, which when you're on a road trip, that makes more sense anyway because it takes a long time for the Cybertruck battery to go from like 85 or 90% to 100%. You're likely going to be regularly charging from 10 or 15% to around 80 or 85%. I believe that's going to be kind of the sweet spot there, it appears like. And so very likely when towing, you're going to have, even with a range extender pack, less than 200 real world miles to work with. And really the purpose of this video is not to discourage you from buying the Cybertruck. It's to provide important information so you're not getting less range than you expected. Do let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd also like to say once again, thank you to all of those of you who support me through Patreon. Your support makes a big difference and really does help make these videos possible. If you'd like to find out more about how you can support my work through Patreon, I will put a link in the video description. Thank you so much.